Hello, my name is Andy Burt, and welcome back to our Leadership Spotlight segment here at Investment News TV. Today, we're joined by one of this year's Rising Stars. His name is Michael Lee, and he is Principal Wealth Advisor and Focus Team Lead at Farther, which is based in San Francisco. Michael has more than a decade of experience helping employees from some of the country's largest corporations prepare for retirement. His passion for simplifying complex financial decisions began with his own family, and it continues to guide the way he works with clients today. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Happy to be here.
Let's dive in. Michael, congratulations first on being named a 2025 Rising Star. You've said your first introduction to retirement planning came when you helped your own mom navigate her retirement. Could you tell us what that experience was like and how it shaped the way you work with your own clients now?
Yeah, absolutely, Andy. It was very early on in my career. My mother worked at Kaiser Permanente. She wasn't a doctor. She was a really rank and file union employee. When she got retired, it was not her own choice. This is right on the cusp of 2008, and every employer at that point was looking to cut costs. My mother is a first generation immigrant. She moved over here from Hong Kong and she barely spoke English. So growing up, it was my job to translate all the letters, important documents. And it was really early career for me. And they mailed her severance package, her pension paperwork, and all this stuff that was just really intimidating at the time. It's more than 200 pages of legalese that you got to read through. And I just recall, so young, so new, it was just too much to handle. And at that time, we ended up actually just ignoring the paperwork. I was, in hindsight, really crazy because there was money she was leaving behind. We didn't get back to it until 2 or 3 years later when I had my licensing done. I understood what was going on. And luckily for us, since '08 had just passed, things actually moved in her favor. And she still got everything she was entitled to. But just learning and experiencing how difficult understanding some of these concepts are, making these big once in a lifetime decisions can be both difficult and frustrating. And back then, information was not as easy to come by as it was today. There wasn't like you could just look it up and understand everything in one go. That experience helped me understand that even when someone looks, they're in a really good position, right? Getting retirement benefits, severance, all these things are seen as positive. Without being armed with the right type of advice and guidance, it actually, in a lot of ways, makes it feel even scarier and worse.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing what was a very personal experience and how that's helped shape you. Could you share a pivotal moment or even a project in your career that you believe contributed significantly to your recognition as a rising star?
When I began in the industry, it was very small company that I cut my teeth at. You know, I started from very humble beginnings. It was a unpaid internship that I found off Craigslist in my last year of college. So very, very from the ground up start. After I had done a decade of individual production, it was just time to move my practice and Farther became my home. And when I got to Farther, they asked me, Michael, you've done great over the last 10 years. What do you really see as your next phase? And I was looking for my next challenge. Building a team became kind of my focal point. Like I wanted to help others around me the same way that I learned the business, began my practice. I wanted to help others do that. Honestly, I really underestimated what I was getting into, but making that decision has been like a huge changing point. Those relationships I have not just built with my clients, but also my team members now, the leverage you get from working with other professionals, pushing each other, mentoring each other, having that camaraderie and culture really fills each day in a way that wasn't there before. And I think the guidance I got from the senior leadership at Farther at that time really pushed me in a direction that helped me grow more.
Michael, thank you for sharing about your own growth through these experiences. A big part of your role is making complex concepts such as pensions, social security, and taxes easier to understand. How do you go about breaking down those for your clients?
Yeah, I would say a big point of feedback that I've gotten from clients over the years, from others, and just from my experience is that advisors in all shapes and sizes of all tenures and experience, they use a lot of jargon. What I found, especially when I needed to translate these types of things for like my own family, and I was born here in America, so English was not even my first language. I spoke Chinese at home first, and then English as a second language growing up. So I am bilingual, but when you have to explain something like Social Security across both languages, it really, you realize it's a very strange and foreign concept. So I realize you really need to break it down into its simplest terms, use words that normal everyday people use in language, and really get away from all the industry specific terms that financial advisors kind of almost use as a crutch. That's what I found whenever I talk to clients and I say to them, why do you like working with us? What was it that stood out? The a very common theme is we talk in layman terms, we make it easy to understand, we speak slowly, we give them chances to ask questions, and we are not afraid or impatient when we have to repeat ourselves. That's kind of the model that we try to live by, and a value I try and instill in every member of my team.
Michael, well, thank you for breaking that down for me. I appreciate that as well. You work with employees from large corporations, including PG&E, AT&T, and T, and Kaiser Permanente. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see them face when they approach retirement?
Yeah, so these companies, I had the fortune of growing up in a very beautiful Bay Area where each of these companies at one point had their headquarters. And with these large corporations, they go through many benefits changes, mergers, acquisitions, and a lot of times you realize people come from all walks in life. I'm not talking like, just the fact that someone starts as a union member and moves up into management. There are certainly people that would have remembered the name Pacific Bell, for example, which eventually became AT&T again. And it's, if you go back in the history, it goes, in reverse also. So American history, learning that in school really plays out in what I'm working today. And the origin story of every person. Like if, for example, if you were someone who started at Pac Bell, worked your way up, went through the merger, and now you're employed by AT&T, that pathing that you take will dictate which benefits package you get, how they play out, what types of variables go into adjusting your retirement timeline or payouts. And your story will differ from someone who maybe started at AT&T originally. This is someone that didn't go through the Pac Bell route. Maybe they were SBC originally, and then they also at this point in their career are AT&T employees, but their package, their benefits, all the terms and conditions that they need to know are completely different from someone that began their career on the other side. So those complexities, disarray of information, these are grandfathered plans that literally do not exist anymore. There's clauses and dates that are cutting off. You need to understand all the intricacies to be able to provide comprehensive advice for this niche of people. And I find that they really appreciate when you can speak their terminology, know their acronyms, know their history, and provide advice that is personalized to them.
Thank you, Michael. I like the way that you described each person has their own story that you need to learn. And you noted that you joined Farther in 2022, and since then, you've taken on a leadership role as a focused team lead. What's your philosophy on mentoring other advisors, and how do you foster a client-centric culture within your team?
Yeah, so my team is really, really unique. The culture that I look to build is a team-based environment that has a big component of camaraderie, a very flat hierarchy. I specifically make it a point that even though, myself and certain advisors are in a mentorship role and teaching, that we always address each other equally, that we do not hold one above or below another. This comes from, my upbringing. I used to do rowing as a sport. And in that type of environment, whether you sit at the front of the boat, the back of the boat, you're all trying to row the boat the same way. There's no hierarchy, and that's the way I look to build my team. When we were looking at how we serve clients, I think back about my mother, how she could barely speak English, how it would have been very difficult for her to find help because she was a first generation American. She was not very high up. She didn't even finish high school. Yes, maybe if you're a doctor at Kaiser, you're going to have people pounding on your door to help you. But when are on the lower end of that hierarchy, it is actually very hard to get the right type of attention from a wealth advisor. So I try to instill this story in every member of my team that we should look at people as people. Every single person deserves our help. It doesn't matter if they're at the top of the pyramid, the middle, or the bottom. Each one of their lives are unique. Each one of their stories need our attention, their own personalization, and we should treat every one of them with the same respect that we treat our biggest clients.
Michael, thank you for demonstrating how people just have different backgrounds that you need to be able to recognize and then work with. And retirement planning can feel overwhelming for many people. So, what is one piece of advice you'd give to someone who's 5 years away from retiring?
Yes, retirement planning is a ongoing investment. And frankly, it's something that you need to engage in throughout the journey. In many ways, it's like your actual health, but maybe just or your wealth is at play here. And when you're younger, it can feel really far away. You probably don't need to check in on it as much, just like how you don't need to go to the doctor as much. As you get closer, though, those checkups become more frequent. You need to get tested for more things. For someone that's 5 years out, that's someone that's right on the cusp. Like that person should be checking their stuff once a year, just like you go to the doctor annually for your checkup. So I find that people in that zone are right on the cusp where they need to start giving it the attention it deserves. The sooner you start, the better off you'll be.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing your story and insights with us today. It is clear your work is rooted in both expertise and care. We appreciate you joining us.
Happy to be here, Andy.
My name is Andy Burt, and we will see you next time on Investment News TV.